Welcome everyone. Welcome in. So I am so excited to be here with everyone for the very first episode of my new series.
I'm so proud of you, goddess. Snap out of it, babe. I heard
Yeah,
that.
welcome everyone. So just to get us started off, I wanted to, before we even really communicate anything that we want to share today, I would like to do a very quick throat chakra opening exercise with you, and everyone here can participate if they want to on their own.
Okay.
So what you're going to do is you're going to just interlock your fingers loosely. Yeah, like have some relaxation about it, and then connect the tips of your thumbs together and hold your hands at your belly. And you're going to let out a sound, and the sound is hum. And you can hold it as long as it feels good for you. And hum. Okay, so I'm going to start, and Steph, you and I can start at the same time if you want. I'll give you a countdown.
Okay.
3, 2, 1. All right. Welcome. I'm hoping that exercise will help us communicate fully with our inner voices and our souls and speak in our truth. So I invite you to do so.
Let's get it. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Thank you so much for joining me for our new series, for my new series, Brown Girl Healing. And this series is Snap Out of It, Babe. So this is going to be a monthly live where I'm just sharing resources, sharing some healing resources that I've picked up and sort of honed along my journey. My healing journey started about almost 2 years ago. And a little bit about me, some background is that I am a teacher. I've been an educator for 12 years. That's how I know Stephanie. Her and I used to teach together back in NYC. I've since relocated to the Bay Area, but I do still teach. High school and middle school was my main jam. And I've also, sorry, that's my dog. I've also started a life and spiritual coaching practice this year where I'm helping my clients to live their best life too and overcome obstacles and maybe even some traumas that are blocking them in life from moving on. So that's me. That's a little bit about me. And Steph, I invite you to share whatever you're comfortable sharing about yourself and your story.
Sure. So, like Raj said, we actually are like work besties. That's where we met, in New York. I've been an educator for 15 years now. It went by fast, girl. So, I'm a special education teacher. And then I guess my healing, if you will, started probably maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but it kind of got a kick in the butt around 2019. And I had to just go really deep inside and start to uproot a whole lot of stuff that I didn't even know was there. So that I think really started in 2019, and I'm still on the path. I don't pretend that it's like an end goal to reach, but there's definitely a shift from this surviving place to I want to live and thrive. And I think that that's the place that I'm at now. I guess I have a few businesses. I have Kitchen Chemistry, which is like um, natural, like shade-based coconut sort of products for your skin. It's been on hiatus for a while now. Look at maybe later 2022 to bring it back. But then Freeedom Tour is all about the healing journey. And that has been exciting because I really started to tap back into my writing. So I'm a writer, I'm a poet, and I host a collective space for the community. It's a free space online for folks to show up and to love on themselves with themselves and a community of people. It looks different and the same every time, if you know what I mean. But yeah, so that's me.
Yeah.
And I'm from Chicago. I am on the East Coast, but I am a Chi-Town girl all day. It's important.
Yes, yes. The roots are so important. Good and bad, the
Yeah,
roots are important.
yeah.
Uh,
And they make me.
it's true. They, you know what? So today we're talking about survival mode, right? And I feel like so much of my survival mode comes from my New York roots, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing. It's like you can't survive in New York if
Mm-hmm.
you're not operating in survival mode, which was my experience, right?
Baby.
Like
Yeah.
growing up and like just having that automatic like sense of urgency and like the hustle.
Mm-hmm.
The hustle wasn't even called the hustle back then. It was just the way you lived.
It
You
was the
know?
mode of operation, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, I get that. Yeah. I mean, I think Chicago different from that, like just in terms of speed, like let me tell you, it was a completely different like speed when I got here. Here being a lot faster, but in terms of always gotta have your head on the swivel and just sort of really paying attention and just I don't know. I know that's where my anxiety was birthed, was during my young years growing up on the West Side. Yeah,
Yeah.
layered, very
Yeah.
layered. Because I had a beautiful childhood, and I don't want anyone to ever think I didn't. I absolutely did, and I grew up in a very hard place
Yeah.
with a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I feel like my experience growing up was kind of similar but in similar and opposite, if that makes sense. So some of you who may follow me or heard me on a different show or podcast know I am in recovery from being raised and being still part of a dysfunctional family with dysfunctional
Mm.
parents. I grew up with a lot of trauma that at the time was not called trauma, right? Some things like, you know, emotional or verbal abuse that are not outward,
Right.
like external, is often dismissed.
Yeah.
So, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
I, on the outside, may have looked like I had this great childhood, you know, like parents that were focused on my education and all of these things in order for me to be successful. But internally, that's where my anxiety was rooted and really like took took root, I guess. Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and like so internally, like growing up in a house where like, you know, it was walking on eggshells. It was like I don't know what kind of mood, you know, my parents are going to be in next, if there's going to be a fight, if there's going to be someone
Mm-hmm.
walking out, if I'm going to get yelled at, if I'm not perfect, like
Mm-hmm.
all of these things that I had to worry about as a child from probably the age of maybe like being a toddler, like 2, 3, 4 years old, of like
Right.
having this environment of chaos right around me on the inside and
Mm-hmm.
inside the home, right? And then going
Right.
out and trying to function and
Have a face.
yeah, yeah, and like
Because
have that
that's
face.
survival too, right?
It is.
Like
That's
that mask.
exactly it. It's
Yeah.
exactly it. It's the
Yeah.
mask of like, no, I'm good. Like I'm
I'm
good.
good.
I'm normal. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm functioning. And for a while, that like that survival mechanism was what kept me safe, right? Because I'm like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
no, like I'm just like everyone else, you know, like I got
Mm-hmm.
this. But on the inside, I did not have it.
Girl. When did it start to unravel for you or like become clear to you that, oh no, something in here is going on? Because I have like, there are different points that I can look back on. And I think the first time, if I'm honest, the earliest time was the first time I realized I had depression. And I was like 15 years old. And
Yeah,
I remember like, oh, take Prozac, take this, do, but it never actually addressing what the hell I was going through
yeah,
or what was going on internally that was making me so just unwell.
yeah, yeah. I think. I knew things were wrong when I was a teenager because I felt like I was definitely depressed,
Mm-hmm.
but I couldn't talk to anyone about it. And the people I did talk to about it, you know, if I made myself vulnerable and talked to somebody about it, most of the time, like my feelings would be dismissed or like
Mm-hmm.
explained away or excused away, or like, oh, it's not that bad, or people
Mm-hmm.
have it worse than you, or like
Mm-hmm.
trying to like rearrange the details of the story of what was happening so that it didn't look like it was that bad, so that I would feel like I was crazy,
The
or like
gaslighting. Yeah,
gaslight,
absolutely. You're like, wait, am I
gaslight.
bugging? Wait, maybe that didn't really happen the way I thought it did.
Right.
Maybe, okay, all right. And it becomes this, I don't know about for you, but it becomes an internal mechanism. Like I do it for first. I don't need anybody else to do it because I'll go in my own head and be like, yeah, you're bugging. You're like, you're being dramatic, being ridiculous. It's really not that bad. Or that thing didn't happen exactly the way. Well, what did you do to cause it? What
Right.
didn't you do?
Right.
Um, that's so interesting.
Right.
And even that being a survival mechanism, I feel like.
It is because you're like learning and conditioning yourself to accept unacceptable behavior,
Behavior. Hell yeah.
so it's
Yeah,
like the
absolutely.
more and more you accept of this unacceptable behavior, the more internal chaos it is, because your mind is trying to reconcile these two parts of yourself, where
Mm-hmm.
there's a part of you, that soul part of you, that inner child part
That
of you,
knows.
that
That
knows.
knows.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
then there's the other part of you that's like rationalizing in a way to change your reality, and your
Mm-hmm.
relationship to your reality ends up changing too. And I think all of that is survival mechanism.
You know, it's so interesting you said that because what dropped in my spirit just now was acceptance and surrender. It was like, I think the turning point for me was the acceptance and surrender to the realities without like a guilt, a shame, or a blame. And to get there was a lot of work. I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, I woke up one day and like that's not how that went. That's not how that went at all. But I think the shift began when it was like, no, it happened exactly like that. Shit was crazy. There was destruction and chaos all around you, despite everyone's best efforts. Because the other thing I had to reconcile, I'm like, my parents were carrying their own traumas and they were in their own survival modes and they were doing the absolute best that they could with what they brought, and it's that, and it wasn't to excuse it, it was just to place it appropriately,
Yeah.
and to also come out of the version of victim mode that I was in,
Yeah. Yeah.
of things happening to me. Okay, yeah, things happened. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anyway, surrender.
Yes. Yes. By the way, I have had to surrender in the past few minutes to my dog finding
Yeah.
every single noisy toy that she could find while I'm on this live to chew.
Pickles, hey
So
Pickles. Pickles is my baby.
she's like, oh, let me find the noisiest, loudest bone and then create a toy to chew on while Mama's on this live right now.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I see people in the chat. I think I'm catching on to this. I see some
Yeah.
regrown goddess also to know their best wasn't enough, and that's okay.
And that's
Absolutely.
okay. And that's
Yep.
okay. So
Yep.
I just want to, let me talk. Okay. So let me talk about my parents for a moment. And I'm in the process, I think, of like learning my own version of forgiveness. And I see somebody else in here place it and be able to give forgiveness. Yeah. So forgiveness
Mm-hmm.
is tricky. You can't force it. When I was young and like, my dad would go off on his like rageaholism, and then
Mm-hmm.
it was like nothing, it was like everybody pretended nothing happened. And then so that's where I think I started to have problems with forgiveness, because in my mind it was like forgiving means that you just pretend things don't happen or didn't happen, and then you pretend that your feelings weren't hurt, because in my experience, like I wasn't allowed to have those feelings, or like the feelings
Right.
just weren't acknowledged. So
Mm-hmm.
in a way, like growing up in that kind of also added to my survival mode too, where it was beneficial for me in order to survive to ignore my feelings.
Right.
know?
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting because it's I think it's layered. I used to say it's complicated, but I don't think that's the word that I would use now. It's just layered. And I think that when I started doing the work, like for real, it was already after both of my parents had transitioned. So like my mom passed in 2007, my dad in 2014. And I went through this, and I was close to both of my parents. I mean, like very close, especially with my mom. And so I went through this, like, not wanting to name stuff because I felt guilty. Like they're not here to say their part. Like don't speak ill of, and then I had to like reconcile that with the fact that like things that were not okay can coexist with the fact that I love them and they did their best. Like those things are all still true. And I think when I got there, I was able to then start to like pick pieces apart. And I remember when we started the Black Girl Collective almost 2 years ago now, that first series that we did was like it was called Antidote, Digging Up Roots. And it was looking at like what they left us, whether they were still here or not. And for me, both of my parents had transitioned, but she left me and he left me with prompts we did. And I remember writing and writing and writing. And I was just kind of like, okay, so they were human. That is it. That is all. And these things, I have a right to feel the way that I do about them. If I'm hurt, I'm hurt. If I'm angry, I'm angry. If I'm, and then the parts that I am left to now parent myself, and then because of what they weren't able to do, I had to reconcile that in some sort of way too. And it did not equate to my feelings don't matter and I need to cover them up anymore like I used to, because I did. And I was accustomed to being the distraction. I was like, the way that I found worth and value and safety was to make everyone happy and to make the situation better, to get good grades, to be the good girl and all the bullshit, right? And taking that back, being like, I see why I had to be like that, had to, right? And now I'm choosing something different, and this is why.
Yeah.
This is why that was. And that's not where my worth lies. It's not where my value lies. It's not external. It's internal. And I already had it. I just didn't realize it. And because of the way in which we grew up and in the chaos of it all, I couldn't have seen it then. And okay, fine. But now it's a different day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so interesting that so you and I probably had different childhoods, but not terribly different. We're both women of color. We're both the other in some
Mm-hmm.
ways, so I understand my parents' struggle. They came here with little to nothing and
Right.
built everything they had. And then that was sort of impressed upon me and my siblings is like, no, you work,
You work. Work.
school,
Yep.
That's your job, is to do that. And
Yeah.
it was like in their particular brand of that, you didn't get to have a personality, or like grow into this like individual who has like interests and things. It was like, no, tunnel vision, one mind focus, like grades were the top,
Mm-hmm.
right? And like that was your job. In my house, it's like, you got to get the grades. And in a way, like I'm thankful for that, in that it has brought me success, right? Like I was able to go to college and go to university and go to grad school and get an education that has provided me with the means, to support myself. But at the same time, I realize now there's a different way of going about it where you can do all of those things and be motivated, but not like a negative motivation, right? Where it's like, if you don't do this, like,
Right.
what's
Fear
gonna happen.
driven. Like fear driven.
Yeah.
And then that question, at what cost?
Right.
Like I achieved all this. My resume looks like this, blah, 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 blah. And at what cost? Like what shape is your soul in at this point?
Right. Right. And I think
Yeah.
spiritually at the time, like, they just weren't even thinking about that, like the spiritual impact,
Mm-hmm.
So, like it's a conflict for me. It's definitely an inner conflict where it's like, on one hand, I see why they did what they did and why they had to do what they did.
Right.
But the way they went about it was probably what was more damaging than the principles behind it, you know? And I think that's kind of like what the way they went about it is what actually like put me into survival mode.
Into survival mode.
Yeah. So I want to share a definition I found of survival mode, and it's pretty basic. It's from Psychology Today. It says survival mode is an adaptive response of the human body to help us survive danger and stress. So I guess my question to you is, what kinds of things like make you get into survival mode? Like, what kinds of things activate that survival mode in you?
Definitely heightened emotions, erratic behaviors, loud talking. I mean, they're all indicators that something about to go down, like up to and including shootouts and, you know, I mean, all of it. I think some other things that trigger for me that is like in the less like seeing and the more like sensing is emotional detachment. That was huge. I didn't understand the level of emotional abuse that I had endured, which didn't happen in childhood as much. It happened in my adult relationships, romantically and with like friends. And so one of the things that happens is if I have a certain way of communicating with a person and then suddenly they like shut down, like all of my stuff starts going off inside. And I didn't even realize that until this year of therapy. I didn't even know to talk about it before. But yeah, I think those are some of the things that set that off for me. And then at school, I mean, you know, we worked in a very our community has a lot of trauma. Our babies come with a lot of shit. Our babies come with a lot of stuff that adults can't make it through. They're working through, and it spills out. And so when stuff happens at school, sometimes it triggers all of my childhood stuff. I'm like, oh wait, it's inside. Like they don't see that, but it definitely goes off.
That's true for me too, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think just being in the environment of like working with kids, it's like everything is like in the moment. Like, okay, we gotta do this, and the like physical response is like I'm literally up here, like all day, you know, tense, and I've got like all of this stuff going on in my core that I honestly didn't even know I was doing. I was just holding everything, you know,
in your body.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Because I was in fight, flight, or freeze mode, just constantly.
Yep.
Like I didn't know I was in it, and it was just, in a way, it's like work has always been very fulfilling for me because I love working with kids, but it has also been something that I think is like an adrenaline rush, you know, where it's like you're, in my case, I was like addicted to the excitement of it and the adrenaline rush that I get with like, okay, I'm like rushing to get to work.
I'm in it. I'm about to.
Yeah. And then like, there's a positive side to that, but like what I've realized through healing and sort of like unpacking all of these feelings for myself is like I can still have that positive effect on myself and my kids and not like have this like physical response of like
going into the trauma of it all.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yep. That's one of the things that I was thinking about. It's so funny. I just want to say we got quite a few of our children popping into the chat. I'm like, Sareg, Michelle, hey y'all. That's dope. That makes me feel good.
Like for us.
I know, and they're all grown up. I mean, I'm looking at like, I think an almost 30-year-old or like a 26, 27-year-old now. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Hey y'all. Gosh, what was I going to say now? That made me...
We were talking about the physiological response. right?
Oh yeah. So that's so interesting because I had written a poem not too long ago, like over the summer, about like how that stuff sits, how the trauma then sort of sits in the body. And I mean, there's lots of science now about how it'll crystallize, maybe become masses, and then we're looking at all these like, where did that cancer come from? Right. And so I think it was that book, The Body Keeps the Score, Body Keeps Score, something like that. And I remember my mom talking about that. And then I'm looking at like generations of family members who have passed from different forms of cancer, and then coming from a legacy of human beings, period, on the planet, trauma ridden, and we keep not dealing with it holistically, like, right? But then specifically being a person of African descent in this country, and then looking at what they have gone through and what was passed down. And I'm like, oh, well, yeah, duh, of course. All right, so this is the generation we're gonna, no, we're not doing that. And I think the other thing I was thinking about was like how it serves, because I remember you had asked that too, like how does it serve us? And I'm like, I get shit done. That is true, right? So I lean into that masculine, but when am I not leaning into the feminine, right? And then in a crisis, I'm your girl, right? And like I watch it over and over, whatever it is, especially at school, right? And I think the task of today is, or the noun is figuring out how to use those skills again, like you said, without going into that place of trauma and re-triggering stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Oh my God. I feel like definitely crisis mode for me. It's like, okay, I got this. I know what you need to do. And like, I'm right there in it. And then what I realize afterward is like, after the crisis has passed, I'm like, exhausted. I could sleep for 3 days. Like I am done. And something else you said made me think of something. Yeah. So that like.
That's it down there, very calm in crisis. Yep. Yeah. It's like I go into a zone.
Yeah.
Like, and everything slows down around you. You can see all the, but that was the skill of the survivor that, it serves me still. Absolutely.
Yeah. And also I felt like I could just take anything, right? Like anybody's nasty words, like anybody's abuse. I could just take it. But it's different now because like before I was just absorbing it and like it would just contribute to that tension, right? And now it's just like it's more of a deflection. Yeah, it just rolls off because what happens?
That's because you got that oil on you. Now it's like water. That's right. I love it.
Yes. But yeah, so it's like the internalizing, I think, was what caused me so much pain. Is like just like the constant absorbing it and internalizing and not dealing with that. Like sometimes, somebody will say something or do something and it's just like, oof, like that didn't feel good. And I kind of internalized that and then you work through it. But I was not working through it because it was like one survival situation to the next, and not processing my own emotions around it because I hadn't learned how to do that, because I was constantly just operating in that mode since I was little. So it was just like, I thought that was the way that people operated. When I see other people who like appear to be happy and like functioning and have all these like great healthy lives, I'm like, how do there's something wrong with them. Yeah, they're not really like that.
They're not really like that.
I have figured out how to live life, clearly.
Because my way is the right way.
Exactly.
No. No. Yeah. Oh, I see a few more things. Let me see. I thought that was good, but now I don't know how to get back to it. Oh, being calm in a crisis is also a true sign of a born warrior. Salute. Oh, Gina. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. And teachers have a way for making crisis comment look like they were made for it. And we were built for it, some of us.
In a way, yeah.
In a way.
You know I want to share something funny. So I shared this with my business coach recently. I said, survival mode, the place where I turn it on now, and in fact, maybe it just turns on when I pull into the parking lot, Costco. So
Shut up.
Costco is my like, I get all my survival mode, addictive behavior, adrenaline rush when I go to Costco. I'm like, yes, I get my card ready. I'm like, boom, 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 down the aisles. I'm flying by. I get there right when they open, so I don't deal with all the crowds. And I am in survival mode, and that is one way in which it serves me.
Oh my God, you did not say Costco. I love you.
I did, seriously.
That's me in the airport.
But I am here for it.
I can't. I don't even have a good one. I'm gonna just hold space for that one. Oh wow.
So where else does survival mode benefit you now?
Well, life is still happening. There, without getting too personal, life is still happening. And so there have been a few times recent here where there have been some shit went down. And I feel like not only was I able to utilize my survival mode, but I also was able to utilize I have a much better relationship with my emotions. Like I grew up both like it being verbalized and it just being a part of the way I grew up. Emotions set you up for getting messed up. So that was weak. You didn't show them, right?
Yeah.
And so what I realized is becoming in touch with them is actually beast mode. Like nothing not strong about that. That's like the strongest thing I think I've been able to do is to really get in touch with them and learn how to move with them and not control with them, but literally being in the flow, understand the information they're bringing me in the time and being able to respond, not react, but respond.
Yeah.
And so I think that the survival mode stuff coupled with that has made me navigate a few current situations in ways that, girl, if it had been a few years before, you might have been getting me out of jail. I'm just saying. Right? Yeah. Like, that is the truth of it.
Yeah.
So I think that I have a deep appreciation for it. And I think I have there's a humbleness for it, too. It's like a surrender to that.
Yeah.
That's a part of who I am, because I am a beast. I know that, and I had to be, but the learning to use it in this way now, I think, it's really kind of beautiful, especially coming into this fourth decade. I'm like, okay, I think I'm getting it.
Yeah.
Okay. And I can afford to be soft in a way that I could not before. Like I have a tenderness that I did not have.
Yes.
Which I like.
Yeah, that totally resonates. Absolutely. Because I'm feeling that too. It's like I feel like I'm working with that part of me and accepting it and kind of like showing it the way. And it's not a taming or a controlling. It's really like looking at that part and understanding it, being like, okay, having this conversation with myself and being like, okay, I know you feel like you got to do this, that other thing. And I feel like you got to go into that right now, but we don't have to. We could do it this way and we'd still get the same result. Like, how does that feel? And it's almost like really like breaking down the emotions of that beast, right? It has emotions too, you know.
Yep.
Like we're operating off of
Hello? I'm like, it drives a lot of that beast. Right? Exactly. So the Black and Wonderlist said, I shade on the softness. Yeah. I shade, baby.
That's, I don't think I had that softness either beforehand. It was like survival mode or like just nothing because I didn't understand. Yeah. I just didn't. Yeah. It was totally numbness. Like I didn't understand how to be a person and just like be neutral or balanced really in any way. Who said balance in there? Crucial Tarot.
Yeah, one or the other, right? Exactly. Right. And then really finding out what it means to be in a place of homeostasis, like emotionally. It's a whole different, it's yummy. I didn't know it either. That balance.
We got a question in here. How is the best way to accept the strong masculine energy we adopted in order to survive, especially as children? So I think what I've done with that is really talking to myself. Like, and I know maybe on the outside it looks crazy, sounds crazy. I'm fine with it. So I have
Whatever.
moments where, and like even if I'm out in public, like my students know, they're like, oh, she's just talking to herself. That's fine. And I'll really just have conversations with myself about it. So at moments where I'm at home and I'm really like getting in touch with that part of myself, if I feel it come up, I really do try to understand it. I think that's the first thing. It's like asking that part of you questions and like, you know, like what's making you feel this way? Like why, not why so much, but like what's making you react this way?
What do you need right now?
Exactly.
Right?
What you need right
Like,
now.
what do you need right now? And are you safe? Again, like, are you actually unsafe right now, or are you just feeling unsafe right now? Right? Oh,
Exactly.
I'm safe. I'm safe right now. Okay, bringing it back to that now.
Yeah. Or even like
Yeah.
what's making you feel unsafe, right? Because
Mm,
sometimes for people like me maybe who like aren't even able to discern the emotions at first, right? It's like
mm,
it's just like red flag, red flag, red flag, like warning, warning, warning. And it's
mm-hmm.
what's making you feel unsafe right now? You know, like
And being able to put a finger on that.
yeah, yeah. and
Uh,
and and then really just like look at it, right, without judgment or without trying to explain to yourself like, oh no, that's not what they meant, or that's not you don't have to know, just like look at it, give that part space to just
mm-hmm.
exist so that it
Mm-hmm.
feels heard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's so important. I mean, I just pictured ego self, like,
yeah,
right, making space for it to just exist and be heard.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that requires some slowing down that I think that also didn't exist for me in survival mode then, or honestly 5, 6 years ago even. Like the idea that I need to slow down was like, unheard of. But it has given so much, I think, opportunity and space for me to make those decisions that are healthier in those moments. And I think the other thing, and we didn't mention it earlier, was the boundary. Maybe that's a question to throw out there because I didn't know what a boundary was until I was 40. Like, I could talk about it. I definitely talked about boundaries in school as a teacher, but I feel like a hypocrite. I didn't set boundaries in my own life. Like, I let
Yeah,
people run back and forth, and I didn't realize it. And then I'd be ready to fight. And it all stemmed from not even knowing that I had power in setting a parameter, some boundaries in the first place. And it didn't have to go to, because that was my MO,
yeah,
and I'm like, but why are we reacting that way?
yeah,
So, oh, okay, boundary. Oh, okay. And then very slowly learning how to set those.
yeah, yeah. For sure. I did not learn that. And it was the same thing, right? Like I would teach my
Hmm.
kids about like, oh, you need to have boundaries and like explain what that meant and everything. But I don't think I really had an internal understanding of what that was until I started to have some fucking respect for myself, to be quite honest.
Right, right,
You
right.
know, and be like, look, I don't like being treated this way. This is horrible. And I'm not going to be like treated, feeling like a victim or acting like a victim all the time.
Mm,
But at the same time,
mm-hmm,
I'm not respecting myself. So,
mm-hmm,
and I feel like the boundaries are really for me respecting myself and me like preserving my safety, you know, whether
mm-hmm.
it's emotional safety or physical safety. It's really about preserving that. And so I will do an episode on boundaries coming up. I'm not sure if it'll be the next one for next month, but maybe.
Okay.
But yeah, for sure. I found that in my personal life and also in my coaching life too. Like I have a
Mm-hmm,
couple clients as well that are like, you know, really, really struggling with their boundaries. And I think it goes along with like the people pleasing that we may have been conditioned to do growing up
yeah.
or picked up from society, because as women,
Mm-hmm,
unfortunately, like that's our role a lot of time, is like, oh, you got to take care of everybody else, and especially if you're in a caretaking role, like being a teacher,
mm-hmm,
for example, or being a mom
mm-hmm,
or a nurse. And most of these are female dominated fields. And I think that what happens is like that's the expectation, rather than
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, it would be great if you would do that. Like, no, that's the expectation. And when you
That's
operate
expectation.
outside of that, then
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 it's a
we have
problem.
problems.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's like this expectation of a version of martyrdom. Like it
Yes.
is like embedded,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely embedded. Yeah, giver, pleaser.
Hmm.
And you know what's interesting about that and holding myself accountable, understanding like the other side of that for myself. Like that was me coming out of victim mode in a way too. It was like, well, what am I getting as the pleaser? Oh, these affirmations that first of all are externalized anyway. Like, no, that's not a win. And this perceived safety, because it wasn't real safety, because it was still contingent upon what happened on the outside of me, right? And I know it's really interesting. I don't know if we've answered this masculine question at all
Oh yeah, did
or
we?
explicitly. No. Let me see. Question: how is the best way to accept the strong masculine? Without an orders. Hmm. Did we address that? I feel like we talked
Yeah,
all around
I,
it.
for me, regardless of like what the energy is that's coming up, whether it's masculine or not, is really examining it, observing it, like looking at it, and like giving it the space to exist. That would be
Mm-hmm.
my response to that. That has been my experience, is like allowing whatever the energy that comes up to just be, and like letting it be, letting it know that you see it and you hear it and it's
Mm-hmm.
okay for it to be there is huge for me. Because
Mm-hmm.
so much of like growing up, you know, like my soul and inner child feelings were just like shut down, shut down, shut down, and like shove it, you know, stuff it down. And I think the more I started to just let that part of me know, like, hey, it's okay for you to be here and I want you here, the more
Mm-hmm.
it came up and I was able to understand it better so I could work with it better.
So you could work with it instead of against it. Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, what do they say? That which we resist persists anyway. Like the more we try to suppress it, it's gonna.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that I think is what causes the internal stress and
Terminal.
then results
Yep.
in the physical stress as well. Because when you're
Yep.
constantly trying to either deny or squash down a part of you that exists and is
Right.
wants to
It's not
thrive,
going
you can't.
anywhere.
Exactly. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So it causes that tension that that will manifest in your body physically, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and in your spirit too.
And in your spirit.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. I think, and then in all of the ways that it can, like anxiety, depression, is like that imbalance. I mean,
Yeah.
Gina said it earlier, balance,
Yeah.
balance,
Yeah.
like this place of, and it's not like it stops. It's water, so there's this constant undulation. It's not like you find it and then you stand there. Like no.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Mm, yeah. So we're gonna wrap up in a few minutes, but I wanted to just ask you, and then I'll share it after you as well. What are some practices that you have that help you to stay more balanced and kind of like not operating in survival mode?
Okay. So I think some ones that come off the top of my head is really I've made a commitment to myself to own my mornings because I've learned that it really sets the tone for me and how I'm going to experience the day, how I'm going to co-create with spirit on my day really starts the night before, how much rest I give myself, the spirit I go into rest with, and how I get up. So I try to go to bed earlier than most people do, I think, but I try to go to bed early enough so that when I get up in the morning, I have time for self. Like I can do a quick meditation or a longer meditation. I like my candles. I write my gratitudes. Um, I go to the gym and I really just do things that make me feel good. Because when I feel good, I feel, I don't know that I want to use this word, but I'm not having a better one right now, but in control, if that makes sense. And that sense of like control keeps me out of like survivor sort of things happening to me. It's like I can decide, I can respond to the world. And so my morning practice really sets me up for that. And then I'll like light an incense, maybe burn some sage, sound bowl. Like it looks different each morning, but candles are always a part of it. And gratitudes. And I talk to my ancestors and things like that, of course. But, and breath, returning to my breath. Like I used to think my mom was out of her mind. And now I'm like, oh, breath. So I'll just take a moment. And if I don't feel safe enough to close my eyes, because sometimes it's not realistic, I just slow down and I find my breath.
Yeah. The breath is huge. Breath is so huge. It's so grounding. And you can stay present in your body in the moment rather than like going off into the worry storm in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's breath work for sure. And even just like in the moment, thinking about like, I don't know, I'm thinking in the classroom because that's just the easiest example of where it shows up.
We go back tomorrow.
But yeah, the rest of the day is for rest today. But you know, like just not so before I'm reacting, before I even get there, I've gotten better, and it's taking practice, and I'm not 100%. It's just like taking a breath, counting to 5 sometimes in my head, like, you know, either backwards or forwards, just like, okay, before I even respond to whatever is presented to me, whatever energy, behavior, words are presented.
So you can respond, right, instead of react.
So I can respond instead of going into the survival mode reaction of defensive, you know, and just like blocking the attack or whatever. So I think that is helpful for me, is like the breathing, the counting a little bit, and staying within myself and not letting somebody else's energy stick to me. And
how do you do that one though? Because I feel like I've learned to do that, but I do know that just in terms of both children and other adults has been seemingly one of the most difficult things for people to manage. Like Tracy and I were even talking about that. What is your practice around that? Like, how do you do that? Because I feel like folks could benefit from hearing different versions.
It's a lot of different things. I think that keep me, for lack of a better word, stable.
Because I keep my crystals. Keep my crystals, baby.
It is. I do have a crystal at work that's my favorite, my black tourmaline. It sits on my desk at work.
Your what?
My black tourmaline. You got it. So it does help me at least to absorb the negative energy that's in my space there. But also I think the breathing is really important. And what I've done is like, if I can't close my eyes, I've gotten better. It just takes practice. You're not going to be able to do it right away. I can do it with my eyes open. It's just like putting my attention here, heart center, putting it there, right there. And I've gotten good at connecting with that part of myself and knowing what it wants. And it never, ever wants negative energy, really. So it's almost like a shield. So I also have like a shielding technique that you can kind of do wherever you feel like you need it. It's sort of just envisioning you're going into that space where you're connecting to your intuition and your inner self. And it's envisioning, like, depending on what you want to deal with, but white or golden or yellow light is always good. Envisioning like this sphere of it around you, totally around you, including your feet and everything, and just holding that vision, holding it to protect you, and really just asking that shield to stay there as long as you'd like it to be there is helpful. And like all of these things together help me to stay out of that survival mode and help me to not react, right? Constantly be reacting. And it's not just one thing, right? And I feel like if I wasn't doing all of those things, my practice probably wouldn't be as strong and wouldn't come as easily, right? Because you can't just like, in my experience, you can't just like, okay, cool, like I'm good now. No, it's like, it really does take practice. And I think something else that you shared also, Steph, was the gratitude. Like Gratitude practice
Mm,
is so, so freaking powerful. And it's not just about like keeping a positive mindset, although that's a big part of it. It's
mm,
really like if you are, you know, you're practicing gratitude and you can acknowledge all of these great things that have happened to you in your life and like acknowledge where you are and how far you've come, really
mm,
the the sort of like gut response or the involuntary response to just like do this
the
right and like that
gratitude. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
is no is it really, the gratitude helps that response, that like internal
Yeah.
response, because you're not looking for something, right? Because you
Mm, enough.
are like, yeah, really practicing and appreciating the fact on a regular basis that you are cared for, you are whole, and you are
Mm,
safe. And
mm,
if that's like the reminder that you're giving yourself every day, or I do my gratitude twice a day, morning at night when I go to bed,
mm,
if you're in that space of like, I am whole, happy, whole, safe, and protected, right? Your body and your mind is going to be less likely to go into the reactive responsive survival mechanisms.
it's part of that reprogramming, I think. And there's
Exactly.
quite a few scholars and folks that talk about like the neurobiology. I know Janae definitely is doing a lot with that now, and
Yeah.
lots of other folks, that reprogramming piece.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what that is
Yeah.
making me think of. Yeah.
100%. 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
this has
Cool.
been good.
Yeah. This was so great.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for joining me, Steph.
Thanks for inviting me. This is so dope. I got to have
Yeah.
conversation with my sister who I miss. I don't get to see. We are
Yeah.
on
We're
different
on
coasts now.
different ends. Um, so I am gonna save this video.
Okay.
I'm gonna figure out how to do that, and I will do that as
Do
soon as
you
I
know
figure
how?
that
I don't know
out.
how. I've
I
never
will
done a
figure it
live.
out. So once I do
Thank
that,
you.
it will be available, and you can find it on my my Instagram. Also, if you liked what you heard today, and if you want to go deeper and learn some more practical and spiritual tools, I'm hosting a workshop, same name, Snap Out of It, Babe, um, in 2 weeks on January 15th. It's an hour-long workshop. It'll be on Zoom. If you want to register for it, it's free. The link is in my
Mm-hmm.
bio. And yeah, so
Thank you.
more tools and more sharing. So, Steph, you want to say anything else before we go?
Just thank you. Thank you. I look forward to it. I feel like just as a friend and sister and being a part of your journey in the ways you've allowed me, it's just beautiful to see you walking in your purpose. Like literally, it's just beautiful. And I'm glad I'm still around and I get to be so close in it, you know.
Oh,
Do your thing, girl. Do your thing.
thank you,
And
thank
I see
you.
somebody dropped in there. I think Mike said that when you close it, it'll give you the option. Thanks, bro.
Yes, thank you, thank you. And I see Miss Cherie over there.
Oh, Cherie, that's our other sister.
Thank
Thank
you, our
you.
third.
Yeah, thanks for us all holding space together. It's like both the folks that have been in the chat, I'm like getting older, so I was having a hard time following it.
Same, same.
But I
Yes,
saw what I needed.
awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me, and thank you everyone for popping in. And I hope this was helpful for you. And stay tuned next month. We'll do another live. I might be by myself, or I might be with Steph again. Who knows?
I like this. Invite me back anytime. This is cool. I love you, girl. Love
I love you
y'all.
too.
Thanks, fam.
Everyone, have a beautiful day.